If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then the camera is the typewriter that types them. Oh, God, no. It's so stupid. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. I'm David Bird with Reality Reimagined. I'm an award-winning photographer and Photoshop artist that specializes in fantasy composite art. And we're going to continue the photography education series on this channel by talking about the most important element of photography, and that of course is the camera itself. We all have our first memory of using a camera to capture a single moment in time and sharing that story with others using the camera and that piece of paper, the photograph. The type of camera that you purchase and the corresponding lenses that go with it can potentially dictate what genres of photography you can step into if you were considering photography as a business or as a serious hobby. So what I want to do in today's video is to start by talking about the most integral tech inside of a camera and show you how that varies between 3 different Canon cameras, because spoilers, I'm a Canon camera user. However, the tech we talk about today is applicable to any brand of camera. We'll then talk about the lenses that I recommend you begin your journey with, and we'll finish with a discussion about more affordable options for your first camera purchase if you are passively interested in photography. So, let's get started by diving into the B&H Photos website and talk about the Canon EOS R. Hold up, slow down, slow your roll, past David. This is future David, and what you did not know is that this entire video wound up being 30 minutes long. 30 minutes, that's a long time to keep flapping your gums about cameras and lenses. So what we're going to do is have part 1 of this video continue forward talking just about cameras and my recommendations, the integral parts in cameras and all that good stuff. And then part 2 will cover all the lenses that I recommend and then finish up this part of the photography education series. So continue forward with part 1, and part 2 will debut on Wednesday, July 29th, 2020 here on the channel, where I will cover all those lenses. And let me know in the comments below if you like the videos to be a little bit shorter, maybe between that 10 to 15 minute range, or if you do prefer a little bit of a longer setting for the video, like 30 minutes. So continue forward with part 1 where we'll talk about cameras. Part 2 will debut on Wednesday, July 29th, 2020. Thanks for watching. Before we get started, I want to mention that in the description below is a link to all the gear that we talk about today on B&H Photo's website. I also want to state that I am not affiliated with B&H Photo. I do not get any kind of financial compensation for that list, but I have purchased most of my gear from B&H Photo over the years. They're a great company and a great group of individuals, so look at the description below for all the links to the gear that we talk about today. The Canon EOS R was the first full-frame, mirrorless flagship camera that Canon launched into the market with mirrorless cameras. What is a mirrorless camera? Well, a DSLR camera, or most digital cameras since existence of digital photography, when you depress the shutter button, the shutter will open and a little mirror will flip down, and it reflects what the lens sees to the sensor. Having that piece of technology removed, the mirror, was a great thing because first, it's a piece of tech. It can wear down. It gets dust and debris on it. The camera body had to be bigger. The sensors were different. The processor was different. The software was different. So when all that's been removed, everything was greatly improved. So the first piece of tech that I think you should consider when you look at a new camera is a mirrorless camera, because it is just my opinion that DSLR cameras, probably within the next 5 years, they'll be extinct. They'll go away and fade away from the market itself. So look for a mirrorless camera. Mirrorless cameras, by the way, every major brand has them. Sony has them, Canon, and then Nikon just announced theirs. So the next deciding factor in the technology inside the camera that used to be the major deciding factor on what made a camera good was the megapixel count, or how strong the sensor was. I don't think that's the deciding factor anymore, because as technology improved, cameras kind of landed around 20 to 24 megapixels. So the sensor was strong, and that was a good megapixel count. What I think is the deciding factor is the image processor itself. The image processor is like the CPU of a computer. It's going to dictate everything and how things are processed, but more importantly, the software that ships inside of the camera, and new improved software only works with the newer processors. So the Canon R launched at $2,500 2 years ago. It's now currently $1,800. It has 30 megapixels inside of it. It has a Digic 8 image processor. Digic 8 is just the name of the processor and the generation number of the processor itself. For video, it's a great camera. It gives you Ultra HD 4K video at 30 frames a second. C-Log is how the camera records information for how you can color code the footage, and then how you can process it later in color correcting and color processing and video editors. It's a great camera. One of the things that launched in this that is exciting with it, that's the reason, one of the reasons why I purchased it, and it's my current camera that I use for photography, is that in my previous camera, the Canon 60, which was a full frame camera, it had focus fields. So inside on the sensor, I had to pick the part of the sensor that I wanted the camera to focus and the subject, and then I had to move that focus field to the person. On the R, the entire sensor itself is a focus field. So built in as software with the processor is auto eye detection. It uses facial recognition to lock onto the eye of the person, and that's what it focuses on. So now all I have to do is worry about the framing that I want in the camera. I don't have to pick the different focus fields and so forth. That was a really big deciding factor for the R for me, and that ships with the R itself in that software that is dictated by the processor. So look for a mirrorless camera, look for the most updated version of the processors that are available in the brand of cameras that you're looking at. Again, for Canon, the Digic 8 came with the R. Now, to talk about the newest processor, we need to talk about two new cameras that were announced by Canon a couple of weeks ago that made a very significant impact on the market for mirrorless cameras. Yes, for photography, but more for filmmaking. And that is the Canon EOS R5 and R6. The Canon EOS R6 is the camera that I will recommend to any person who is stepping into photography as a business or as a very serious hobby. Now, at launch, it's launching at $2,500, which is the same price point of the R 2 years ago. It's launching with 20 megapixels, but the new Digic X image processor, not the Digic 10, not the Roman numeral, because there is actually a Digic 10 that's in the 1DX Mark II and Mark III, I think. But the Digic X is brand new, exclusive to the R5 and the R6. 20 megapixels difference from the R. Why is that important? I don't really think it is, and let's talk about that. So first and foremost, if you're launching your photography career as a business, you're going to get a studio and a camera and some lines and start photographing families, babies, pets, weddings, all that kind of stuff. When you hand a 16 by 20 wall portrait to your client that has 20 megapixels in it, and you hand them another 16 by 20 wall portrait that has 30 megapixels in it, your client most likely is never going to know the difference. You will probably be hard pressed to notice the difference because the jump between 20 and 30 is different, and it is there. It is acknowledgeable, but it is not that noticeable to the general clients that you're going to work with and sell portraits to. I would argue that most commercial entities may not know the difference between 20 and 30, but I would wager that your clients and commercial entities will know the difference between 20 megapixels and 45 megapixels. So the Canon EOS R launched with 30 megapixels. The R6 launches with 20. The R5 is launching with 45 megapixels. The Canon EOS R5 is also launching at $3,900 instead of the $2,500 at launch for the R6. The Canon EOS R, in my opinion, is definitely positioned toward filmmaking because it can capture 8K video at incredible frame rates. The Canon EOS R6 can capture 4K video at 60 frames a second, full HD at 120 frames a second. 20 megapixels, Digic X, this is a great camera, both for photographers, and it's incredible for filmmaking and what it offers at the different frame rates at 4K for $2,500. Now, you may be saying, I'm watching this video going, $2,500? That's incredibly expensive. This is incredibly affordable for everything that's inside of it, and we're going to talk about more affordable options at the end of the video when we talk about kit lenses and kits themselves. But for $2,500 to step into photography as a business or as a serious hobby, this is the camera that you want to purchase because with everything that's inside, all of the tech, all of the options and software, this camera will easily carry you forward at least 5 to 6 years before the technologies improve and before 8K footage becomes the standard in our creative markets. Right now, Full HD is definitely the standard, not 720p but 1080p, and 4K is becoming the standard. Movies stream, Netflix stream edit, TVs are at 4K. They didn't used to be a couple years ago, they are now. So stepping into it for business, both for photography, and if you're stepping into photography as a business and you're saying, I don't care about filmmaking, I just want to do photography, I strongly recommend that you care about filmmaking, because filmmaking is an integral part to photography business. Because we as a society are primed to not only capture photos, but videos, thanks to our cell phones. So any type of client that you're going to work with, if you can provide video as well, and not the work of a videographer, like a videographer for a wedding day, but film footage that you can capture to herald the day of their high school senior portraits, or a newborn's first photo session. Yes, that story can be told in pictures, but you can use that R6 with some very easy equipment and a very easy learning curve on how to film all these events and film the photography session. And that is just as impactful as that 16x20 wall portrait that you hand to the clients. So further down the road on this channel, we will talk about filmmaking. It is something that I've been passionate about, but photography has always been my first focus in business. So R6 is what I would recommend if you're stepping into photography as a business or a serious hobby. Then I would recommend the Canon EOS R, even though it is 2 years older and has an older processor, but it's an affordable price point compared to the 2500. If you cannot afford either of those, then look at the Canon RP. This was the second mirrorless camera that launched after the R. It is a full frame sensor, so is the R5 and R6. It launched with 26 megapixels, only 4 less than the Canon R. It has the same exact image processor as the Canon R, and it records amazing video because, spoilers, the camera that I'm using right now to record my beautiful face and for us to hang out on the YouTubes is a Canon RP. That's why I purchased it, to do YouTube videos. I use my Canon R when I do photography, and when I'm recording video on site for other projects and or for YouTube, I will use my Canon R and my RP as a 2-shot setup for filmmaking itself. So the RP right now, it launched at $1,200. It's currently $1,000. It's a great camera for photography. It's a great camera for filmmaking. So the R6, the R, the RP. Those are my recommendations for Canon cameras stepping into the mirrorless market for the first time as a business or as a serious hobby. And that's a wrap for part 1, talking about cameras and all the integral tech inside of them to help you make the best decision possible for your future career in photography or your serious hobby in photography. So thank you so much for watching part 1. Again, part 2 will debut on Wednesday, July 29th, 2020. If you like the content you found in today's video, make sure to give the video a like and consider subscribing to the channel. New content debuts each week in photography and Photoshop education. And when you subscribe, make sure to hit that bell icon so you'll be notified of that new content when you return to the YouTubes. Thanks again, and until Wednesday, July 29th, 2020, I'll see you out there in the world of Photoshop.